Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks with the Spain News Update. And Spain's tourism industry is optimistic that 2022 is going to be a good year for tourism here in Spain. But more about that in just a moment. Firstly, a big thanks to all of the people that left comments on the last video. Lots of comments, lots of debate happening there as usual. Thanks to people that supported the channel through a donation or by buying me a beer or a coffee. Many thanks for that. Thanks to people that bought merchandise, and a big thanks to my patrons on Patreon for your ongoing support. Now, let's get into the news. And at the weekend, Spain's main tourism fair, Fitur, came to an end, and the tourism industry here in Spain, as I said, is optimistic that 2022 is going to be a good year. As we can see here, Fitur closes its 42nd edition with 110,000 visitors and calls for optimism ahead of the tourist season. The International Tourism Fair, Fitur, has welcomed 110,193 visitors in its 42nd edition, which closed on Sunday, a figure that exceeded all the organisation's forecasts and which invites optimism for the tourist season after 2 years marked by the effects of the pandemic. This year's visitors are double those of the 2021 edition, 62,000, which was a special scaled-down version of the fair, but still a far cry from 2020 before the pandemic, when it welcomed 255,000 visitors. The estimated economic impact exceeds 150 million euros. For the director of the Fitur, Maria Balcarce, the balance is very positive because it exceeds the estimates and expectations of exhibitors. So the tourism sector in Spain optimistic that 2022 is going to be a good year, and some positive signs at the tourism fair Fitur, with more than 110,000 people passing through the gates. Now, as we saw last week, the subject of European aid money here in Spain is a bit controversial at the moment, with opposition parties claiming that the money is not being spent in regions where they govern. But as we can see here, this is how European funds are distributed among the communities, a distribution by objectives and not by territory. The distribution of European funds has become the protagonist of the latest clash between the government and the opposition. The PP party accuses Pedro Sánchez of distributing the millions to be managed by the communities by hand and of favouring the autonomous regions governed by the socialists, something that the government rejects outright. The Community of Madrid was the first to open the judicial battle by filing an appeal against the distribution of 9 million euros of the funds, 0.08% of the total, to employment programs in 4 communities: Valencia, Navarra and Extremadura, governed by the PSOE, and the Basque Country, governed by the PNV, as it considered that this allocation was made outside the agreed distribution and arbitrarily. Later, Galicia and Andalusia, also governed by the PP, threatened to present other appeals, and Pablo Casado spoke of the distribution of the funds being clientelistic and could lead to corruption. So opposition parties claiming that the distribution of funds is clientelistic and could lead to corruption. Wouldn't be the first time that that's happened, would it? Now, a new battle for the government seems to be looming, this time with the self-employed, because apparently the self-employed are not convinced by the government's plan to tax them on their real income. The government and self-employed workers' associations will sit down again on Monday to negotiate the government's proposal to change their contribution system. The aim of the Ministry of Social Security is for the self-employed to pay contributions based on their real income and not, as is the case at present, for them to be able to choose voluntarily between the limits of a minimum and maximum base. The harshest criticism has come from the Association of Self-Employed Workers, ATA, the majority within the group and most closely linked to the CEOE. Its president, Lorenzo Amor, has assured that the system that has been put on the table is a hatchet job which comes at the worst time. The ATA has branded the reform as unacceptable and claims that it is aimed at tax collection. Minister Escrivá has denied these accusations and has asked the association for a counter-proposal. So the self-employed here in Spain not convinced by the government's proposal to change the way they pay social security quotas. And I'll put my hand up as a self-employed person here in Spain and say that I'm not convinced either by the government's new plan. Now, former politician Pablo Iglesias, I'll say that again, former politician Pablo Iglesias has been active on Twitter over the weekend, criticising the government for their involvement in the Ukraine crisis. And as we can read here, Pablo Iglesias doubles down on his criticism of the PSOE's response to the crisis in Ukraine. Pablo Iglesias reappeared on Saturday at a pre-campaign event in Valladolid and raised Podemos's criticisms of the PSOE for its response to the crisis in Eastern Europe. After 2 days of disagreements between the government partners, the former vice president accused Minister Margarita Robles of treating Spaniards as fools for her justification of NATO's role. The founder of Podemos lashed out against the militaristic glare of the Minister of Defense and predicted that in coming days the PSOE will soften its position on Spain's participation in the mission. "I'm no longer a politician, I can tell the truth," warned Iglesias, who since his retirement in May has gone further than any party spokesperson and certainly much further than the UP leaders in the government. So my apologies there, it wasn't on Twitter where Mr. Iglesias was so vocal, it was at a pre-electoral campaign event in Valladolid. So if Mr. Iglesias is, as he says, no longer a politician, what's he doing there? Now an update on the health crisis, both here and in Europe, and the good news is that various European countries are starting to cut back on restrictions. As we can see here, Europe eases restrictions imposed by Omicron expansion. Europe recorded 1.6 million new cases of coronavirus on the 19th of January, according to World Health Organization data. This is the highest recorded in the entire pandemic. This is more diagnoses than a week earlier, 1.43 million on the 12th of January, and many more than the week before, 1.26 on the 5th of January. However, several European states have relaxed the restrictions they imposed at Christmas because of the explosion of the Omicron variant. Whether because of the drop in incidence in their territory, because the vaccines are limiting hospital admissions, or because of a change in strategy, countries such as France, Denmark, or the United Kingdom have eliminated some of the social limitations that were redoubled at the end of 2021. In Spain, the only measure imposed at national level at Christmas is still in force: the return of the obligation to wear a mask outdoors. Now let's have a look at a summary of the health situation in Spain, and we can see the accumulated incidence rate for the last 14 days sitting at 3,418. Hospital pressure has been downgraded to high, sitting at 15%, and there are 18,675 COVID patients hospitalised around the country. And ICU pressure remains high at 23.3%, and there are 2,202 COVID patients still in ICU. Now we saw last week how British police released a list of 12 fugitives that they thought may be living in Spain. Well, apparently their efforts have borne fruit, as one of those fugitives was arrested in Spain 24 hours after the appeal was launched. One of Britain's most wanted fugitives has been arrested by Spanish police just 24 hours after an appeal to track him down was launched. Joshua Henry, 30, was arrested in the town of San Pedro de Alcántara in Marbella, southern Spain, on Thursday after police spotted him out walking a dog. Henry has an international arrest warrant against him for his extradition to the UK on charges of drug trafficking and belonging to a criminal gang in Liverpool. Henry's arrest came just 24 hours after photographs of the wanted men were published, with others sought in connection with crimes including murder, drug trafficking and arms smuggling. So there we go, British police efforts to find these men here in Spain paying off, as one of them caught down there in Marbella when he was out walking his dog. Now let's have a look at some of the comments from previous videos. One here from Fergal: Ireland also lifted almost all of its restrictions this week. Yeah, Fergal, thanks for the comment, and we can add Ireland to that list of countries that we saw a couple of minutes ago that have started lifting COVID restrictions over the last week or so, and France, Denmark and the UK being the countries that I mentioned before. So some good news for a change as various European countries start to rethink their strategy on COVID-19 and the Omicron variant. And is this the first step towards the pandemic being considered as endemic? I don't know. Time will tell. One here from Anonymous: will the tourism industry still celebrate when the 270-day rule hits from February the 1st? Spain has already lost many people who spent 6 months of each year there. Now we will be unable to visit unless our NHS decides to give us another jab. Yeah, Anonymous, thanks for the comment, and obviously referring to the European Union rule that people's digital COVID certificates won't be valid unless they have had a booster shot within the last 270 days. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but I was under the impression that the UK is offering booster shots to everybody there over the age of 18. So if you're planning a trip to the European Union after February the 1st and you haven't yet got your booster shot, you know what you got to do. One here from Stevo. There's a snap election here in Portugal on the 30th of January. The press is saying it may result in all COVID restrictions being removed. Yes, Stevo, thanks for the comment. And I had heard that Portugal was going to celebrate elections at the end of this month. Something about the government last year not being able to get the budgets passed, leading to a snap election. And when I was in Portugal earlier this month, everywhere I went, I could see posters and billboards of politicians' faces. So will the elections result in all the COVID restrictions being lifted in Portugal? Let's hope so. One here from Arthur. One of your replies asks about que tal. This reminds me of my first posting to our site in Galicia. I was first down for breakfast. The first Spanish engineer came down and said que hay, the second que tal, and the third just que. My study at Berlitz and its greeting of Buenos Dias made me realize more direct conversations were needed. Arthur, thanks for the comment, and you're right, sometimes the textbooks we use to learn Spanish or the language classes we attend are just not enough, especially when it comes to some of the informal language used in this country. As you all know, I greet the audience every day with a simple que tal, and the other expression you mentioned there, que hay, is one of my favorites too. In fact, que tal, que hay, and que pasa are some of the three most common expressions you will hear in this country on a daily basis. So as I said, a bit confusing if you've only ever learnt Spanish from a textbook. One here from Angela. Hi Stu, I went to my village doctors here in the Malaga region today to ask for my booster, only to be told that there are none and they don't know when they will be getting any. Why is England awash with vaccines, yet here in Spain I can't seem to get one? What is going on? Yeah, Angela, thanks for the comment. And there we go, two contradicting comments. One person saying that the UK is awash with booster doses, and another person a couple of minutes ago saying that the NHS hasn't started offering them yet. And regarding your question about what's happening down there in Malaga with the booster doses, I've got no idea. All I know is that here in Madrid, there is no problem to get a booster dose. In fact, I got mine last week. No problems at all. I called up the local medical centre on Wednesday, got an appointment for Thursday, and in 5 minutes I was done and dusted. So I imagine it's only a matter of days before your local medical centre down there in Malaga has those booster shots available. And finally, one here from Dark Support, just landed in Spain and got met by tapas and rain. Yeah, Dark Support, thanks for the comment, and sorry to see that it was raining when you arrived in Spain. And I'm not sure exactly where you are here in Spain, but I imagine it's the Canary Islands, because I saw on the television yesterday that the weather down there in the Canaries is a bit stormy at the moment. And if that is the case, let's hope that the rain clears up in coming days and it doesn't spoil your entire holiday. On that note, I'll wrap the video up. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Debate the video out as you normally do. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego.